Newly released audio from an interview with Joe Biden blows the lid off Democrat claims that the former president was fit for office.
I think the Democrats are going to pay for a long time for being a part of what is now being revealed to be a massive cover-up.
The revelations come as the 82-year-old announces that he's suffering from an aggressive form of cancer. I'm Daily Wire executive editor John Bickley with Georgia Howe. It's Monday, May 19th, and this is Morning Wire.
Hamas says they're ready to resume talks after massive strikes by Israel.
And as the UK struggles with the effects of mass migration, Britain's Liberal Prime Minister shocks with a major reversal on immigration.
The experiment is over. We will deliver what you've asked for time and again, and we will take back control of our borders.
Thanks for waking up with Morning Wire. Stay tuned. We have the news you need to know.
I have watched him expertly guide meetings of staff and cabinet members. I could not have more confidence in the president.
He's fine. All this right-wing propaganda that his mental acuity has declined is wrong.
Those were Democrats claiming that Biden was still sharp, but newly released recordings are shining a fresh light on the conspiracy to conceal President Biden's cognitive decline.
Daily Wire senior editor Cabot Phillips joins us now with more. Hey, Cabot. So this cover-up of the health decline of the president, one of the biggest scandals in American history, I think we can agree. And now we have this announcement about the former president's cancer diagnosis.
Yeah.
Let's start in order with these revelations about Biden's decline. How did we get here?
Yeah, after President Biden dropped off the ticket last year, Democrat leaders made a concerted effort to sort of memory hole his presidency and shift their party's focus towards Kamala Harris and other younger leaders. But a new book this month from Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson offers explosive details of what they call, quote, President Biden's decline, its cover-up, and his disastrous choice to run again. And the revelations in that book have simply set Washington ablaze. And they brought former President Biden's decline back into the national spotlight.
Yeah, the fallout really has been severe for the Democrats in the media who helped cover this up. What did we learn from this new book?
Well, the author spoke to more than 200 campaign and White House officials, both on and off the record, and the details are stunning. Biden's physical deterioration was so severe that some of his closest advisors believed he would be wheelchair-bound if he were to have won a second term. And while Biden's staff, again, routinely assured the American people that behind closed doors he was running laps around his staff, numerous officials now say that due to his old age, he was limited to 6-hour workdays, typically from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. There were often scheduled naps included as well. And get this, the White House was so concerned by his physical appearance that they secretly enlisted the help of Steven Spielberg to bring what they called, quote, Hollywood magic and make Biden appear more lively and energetic in campaign videos and speeches as well. But even more damning is what we've learned, not just about the physical decline, but the mental decline.
Yeah, let's get to that aspect. What new details have come to light now?
So the White House spent 4 years condemning anyone who questioned his cognitive fitness. They labeled videos of his mental missteps, quote, cheap fakes, and essentially gaslighting anyone who said that he seemed off. To that point, here's then White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
They are cheap fakes video. They are done in bad faith, and some of your news organization have been very clear, have stressed that these the right wing critics of the president have a credibility problem.
But dozens of White House sources now confirm that the president would routinely forget the names of his own cabinet members, and that in private meetings he would repeat the same stories and questions over and over. During one debate prep session, the president abruptly wandered out of the room and was later found sitting by the pool.
And that brings us to these newly released tapes from 2023. Tell us about those.
Yeah, Axios obtained audio of the president's interview with special counsel Robert Hur during the investigation into his mishandling of classified documents. The White House initially blocked the release of those tapes back in 2023, saying it could hinder future investigations. But it's now clear the real reason they didn't want them to come out is because of what they showed. In this clip, you can hear Biden's lawyers quickly interjecting when the president appeared to forget some of those basic facts.
What month did Bo die? May 30th.
2015.
Was it 2015 he died?
Maybe 2015.
I think it's 2015.
I'm not sure the month, but I think it was.
Yeah.
That's right, Mr. President.
And what's happened in the meantime is that and Trump gets elected in November of 2017?
2016.
2016. All right. So, what, 2017?
Really almost difficult to listen to those, to be frank.
Yeah, and you can see why the White House didn't want them coming out. Now, as this new evidence has come to light, Democratic leaders have come out on the record saying Biden never should have run for re-election and that his mental state was clearly compromised. But look, it's important to note just how different that message is from what we heard from them when Biden was actually in power. For example, here's Biden's HHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas.
The most difficult part about a meeting with President Biden is preparing for it, because he is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
And then Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker.
I've been with the President of the United States many times. He is on the ball. The man knows more than most of us have forgotten.
You get the idea. The list goes on and on. So now the question becomes whether voters will hold this against the Democratic Party. As we heard from CNN's Van Jones earlier, who called it a crime against the Republic, he said Democrats will pay, or will voters forgive them and move on?
Or forgive the legacy media that colluded to keep this from the American people. Now, the latest health news comes from Biden's own team, and it's pretty devastating. He has prostate cancer, and it's aggressive. What do we know so far?
Yeah, tragic news for the former president for sure. One of his spokesmen revealed yesterday that an exam last month found a small nodule on his prostate, and further examination reveals it to be a, quote, aggressive form of prostate cancer, and that it has spread to his bones. The one silver lining is that it appears to be, quote, hormone sensitive. That means it could be more treatable. So hopefully some signs for optimism.
More updates to come on that for sure. Cabot, thank you so much for reporting.
Absolutely.
Israeli troops moved into portions of northern and southern Gaza while their Air Force launched hundreds of strikes against Hamas terrorists.
Daily Wire reporter Tim Pierce is here to talk about the latest news on the war in Gaza. So, Tim, what is the goal of this latest operation?
Well, the new offensive is called Operation Gideon's Chariots, and Israel wants the same things it's wanted since the war began, to free the hostages and destroy Hamas. Over the weekend, they made measurable progress toward both of those goals. According to a Hamas spokesman, the terror group decided to return to the negotiating table without preconditions. We'll have to see where that goes, but at the very least, it's a sign that Hamas is feeling pressure. Israeli officials believe that of the hostages still left, as many as 23 of them are still alive. There are concerns that 3 of those are in critical condition, though.
Now, any word on how the negotiations are going?
Yeah, an Israeli official told Israel's I-24 News that talks in Qatar are intense, but still short of a breakthrough. And while officials are more optimistic than last week, it's still unclear if a deal can be reached. One of the deals being looked at is from U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff, and it would release 10 of the hostages. Israel would also be open to a deal that would end the war as well, but only if Hamas surrenders and Gaza is disarmed. The Israeli official said the delegation in Qatar, quote, won't be there forever. If there won't be progress shortly, we will progress in the fighting.
So a sense that time could be running out. Now, as far as Israel's goal of wiping out Hamas, where do things stand there?
The Air Force may have delivered a major blow. Over the weekend, Israeli planes carried out at least 670 strikes against Hamas terror targets. Dozens of terrorists are reportedly dead, and one of those may have been Hamas's head of military operations, Mohammed Sinwar. That's the brother of Yahya Sinwar, who led Hamas until Israeli forces killed him in October.
Now, over the weekend, some documents came out that shed light on what inspired the October 7th attack. What did those documents show?
Right. The Wall Street Journal got a peek at the minutes of an October 2nd, 2023 meeting of Hamas's political leadership. The minutes show that this attack that had been years in the making was launched less than a week later to disrupt Israeli-Saudi relations. Israel and Saudi Arabia were close to normalizing relations under the Abraham Accords from President Trump's first term. According to the minutes, Yahya Sinwar was concerned that normalizing relations between the Saudis and Israelis would, quote, open the door for the majority of Arab and Islamic countries to follow the same path. So Hamas, with Iran's approval, launched the attack to, quote, bring about a strategic shift in the paths and balances of the region with regard to the Palestinian cause. For his part, President Trump has been trying to bring Saudi Arabia and Israel together. Here's his message on that from his Middle East tour last week.
It's been an amazing thing, the Abraham Accords, and it's my fervent hope, wish, and even my dream that Saudi Arabia, a place I have such respect for, especially over the last fairly short period of time, what you've been able to do, but we'll soon be joining the Abraham Accords. I think it'll be a tremendous tribute to your country.
So the Abraham Accords are still a top priority for Trump's second term.
Well, that would be a major win if he could make that happen. Tim, thanks for reporting.
Thanks for having me.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer made a landmark speech in which he attacked mass migration and said his government would significantly reduce it.
Joining us from England is Guy Dampier of the Prosperity Institute. Hey, Guy. So this is quite a turnaround for Great Britain. What did the Prime Minister exactly say?
So he made these remarks at a press conference for the government's new immigration white paper. And he said that he wants to take back control of our borders. And he's called the previous era of mass immigration squalid. So here's a little bit of that speech.
When you have an immigration system that seems almost designed to permit abuse, that encourages some businesses to bring in lower paid workers rather than invest in our young people, or simply one that is sold by politicians to the British people on an entirely false premise, then you're not championing growth, you're not championing justice, or however else people defend the status quo. You're actually contributing to the forces that are slowly pulling our country apart.
He's also blamed the previous Conservative government for the large increase in immigration since 2021, which saw net migration quadruple in only a few years. In 2023, migration was actually over 1 million people, which is nearly the same size as Birmingham, the second biggest city in the whole country. And he's called this a one-nation experiment in open borders, and he's warned that Britain's at risk of becoming an island of strangers. So although he praised diversity and described migration as part of Britain's story, he said that immigrants have got to commit to integrate, they've got to learn English, and he's also extended the period required to apply for permanent settlement. So it's gone from 5 years to 10 years. And that will reassure a lot of people who are very worried that the millions of low-skilled immigrants who've come here in the last few years would very soon be eligible for settlement, at which point they could access the welfare state, and we could have been looking at a bill in the billions of pounds. So immigration policy has been dominated by this idea that immigration is always good for the economy and it's only ever illegal immigration which is bad. So this is a big rhetorical shift.
Yeah, it really is. What has been the reaction inside England and elsewhere to this shift?
We have a Labour government at the moment. They're left-wing, and as you expect, there's been a lot of outrage from their base. They've had a few councillors resign. Some of their MPs have come out against the speech. But that said, most people agree with what he said. People can see all around them that mass immigration has been bad for the country, whether we're talking about the low economic growth and stagnant productivity, or serious things like rape gangs who preyed on vulnerable girls, and hate marches where we've seen people carrying pro-Hamas banners. So in a lot of ways, the Prime Minister is really reflecting the mood of the country rather than driving it. Very recently, we had local elections, what you'd probably call municipal elections, in which the Labour Party did very badly. And the Anti-Immigration Reform Party, which is led by Nigel Farage, did very well. So some people will think that this is an attempt to win back voters and stem that collapse in popularity. But for people on the right, this is also a vindication. The Prime Minister is saying things that we've argued about for years, but a lot of us are going to be skeptical about whether the Prime Minister is actually going to achieve what he claims he's going to do.
Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of healthy skepticism about what he's claiming to do versus what he actually will do. Intriguing shifts no matter what taking place in the UK. Guy, thanks so much for reporting.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Another story we're tracking this week, the NTSB is investigating after a Mexican Navy ship slammed into the Brooklyn Bridge over the weekend. 2 crew members were killed in the collision, while at least 19 others were injured. New York Mayor Eric Adams confirmed the vessel struck the bridge during a departure maneuver when the near 300-foot-tall ship lost power and hit the bridge. Officials say the vessel was en route to Iceland as part of a global instructional cruise.
Thanks for waking up with us. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news you need to know.